My pleasure to be introducing Dr. Ann Eckert Erlanger. Ann is one of our psychology professors. She has been one of our mission ambassadors, and when we spoke about doing Coffee Talk, she had offered to do something for us about reducing maybe some of the stresses that we're feeling, especially as we're into this third week, almost fourth week of remote work. So we know that it's the stress levels deviate for everybody, but this is our opportunity to talk about it and share. So Annie, I'm turning it over to you. You are listed as a co-host, so you can go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathy. So good morning, everybody. What I'm going to be presenting this morning, and I have slides, but please don't think it's going to be death by PowerPoint. There are a couple of resources that I just wanted to make available and visible to you, and I'm happy to share the PowerPoint once we're done, if we can email that out. Basically so I'm a health service psychologist by credentialing, and what a lot of the behavioral health specialists are doing in hospitals is they're joining in what's called rounding at the start of shift. And traditionally, rounding is done to touch base about the patients on the unit, what the census looks like, how many patients are there, what the current needs are of the patients. And the current role for behavioral health in hospitals has really taken this dramatic shift to now working very much not only with the patients, but with the clinicians. You have a lot of at Kaiser Permanente
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Tom is a social worker, and he asked that we share this across the country with our colleagues, so I'm very grateful for that. So the quick overview is that anxiety is a really useful trait that we have. Oftentimes, we're thinking that anxiety is problematic. It's a bad thing to have. You should get rid of anxiety, but anxiety keeps us alive. It keeps us dealing with situations that we have to confront to survive, either by dealing with them head on or running away from them. So part of what I want to talk to you about this morning is how we run at the situation and manage it in a way that's still healthy and effective. So I'm going to do just 4 or 5, kind of ways to effectively deal with the anxiety. So these are not all going to work for everyone across all situations at all times, but I'm hopeful that maybe you can adapt. Maybe one or more of them is needed.
You want to watch this presentation on anxiety with this thing, or you can't?
Karen, you have to mute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It's lovely to hear your voice.
I was going to share it. I was going to share it with my husband.
Please share it with whoever you want to.
Share, Karen. No worries.
All right, hold on. I got to figure this out.
You're good, Karen. Perfect. So the first thing is doing controlled breathing. So for anybody who has engaged in any relaxation training, this is the hallmark of how to manage anxiety. Everyone does it in a different way. So I've done these trainings where people raise their hand and say this is the wrong way. The truth is there's no real wrong way. As long as you're being focused and attentive and controlled, you're probably doing it correctly. So the way that I've been taught to do it is that you take a deep breath in through your nose so you can hear the breath. So anyone who does yoga, you're used to kind of hearing the breath as you're practicing. So the breath in through your nose, very slowed and controlled. And then what I learned and what I love, it works especially well with kids, but also with adults, because it really helps you on that focus piece, is when you breathe out, you put your lips together as if you're holding a straw. And instead of taking a drink in, you slowly blow the breath out through the straw. So that way, again, you hear the breath in, hold it for a second, and then you hear the breath out as you slowly blow through a straw, an imaginary straw on your lips. So the key to deep breathing and controlled, thoughtful breathing is that you need to do it as a practice. So if you're starting to feel yourself getting ramped up, your stomach is clenching, you're sweating, you can feel your heart racing, of course you can implement the controlled and thoughtful breathing. It really works best if you do it as a practice. So a colleague of mine said it was like the smoke breaks of the 80s and the 90s, where people would take a couple of breaks a day to go outside. And even though they were inhaling, smoke, they were actually doing deep breathing in so many ways. So oftentimes I've, instructed people to put a break in their schedule. If they don't want to do that in such a formal way, to just think about maybe before bed or when they wake up or when they're cooking a meal, to engage in that deep breathing. This seems like a real obvious one, but it's so important. So including enjoyable activities. Kathy started us off by saying, I hope some of you had a nice chat. You saw a movie, you know, caught a new show to watch. This is critical and essential, especially as we're managing so many things and helping so many other people, colleagues, students, manage their lives and situations as well. So making sure to have at least one memorable, enjoyable moment, and it can be tiny, it can be big, it can be by yourself, it could be with others, making sure to include that in your daily routine. Love this one. So accomplishments. So this is pulled from the literature on self-efficacy for anyone who's familiar with that work as it relates to us in education. It's from Albert Bandura. You need to think about how can you get things kind of crossed off your to-do list and then embracing that sense of accomplishment. For many of us, it's work, and work feels great and you can get through your task list. During times like this, though, we need to really understand that work can be a little less of getting through the to-do list and a little more of just surviving the day, the day-to-day activities. So what I would encourage everyone to do is to not only make it work, because I think that could set you up for failure. A real part of this sense of accomplishment work is making sure that it's a meaningful and something that you truly can accomplishment. So this could be emptying the dishwasher so that way you don't have to deal with it in the morning and getting that crossed off the list, seriously. Or, you know, having it be that, you know, you've had that thing on your to-do list around the house and it's a minor thing, but you finally fixed, you know, the molding that's been popping off. It can be tiny. But as long as you have at least one thing a day that you thought that was on my list and it's now off my list, that helps build your sense of self-efficacy and accomplishment. And it also helps you feel more relaxed in the process. The wackiest one on the list and the most fun one. So this is harnessing worry. This is a real wonderful thing that we do in what's called cognitive therapy, which is founded by Beck, but this was really something that was done a lot by Albert Ellis, who was a psychologist who practiced out of Manhattan for decades upon decades. And Ellis's thinking is if you don't avoid and run away from the things that are concerning you, but you run directly at them, what's the worst that could happen? So this is called rational emotive behavior therapy or rational emotive therapy. So oftentimes when you start spiraling and thinking like, okay, so I'm going to say some things that might be a little triggering, but we're all dealing with them now. So it's not something you haven't heard a million times on the news. Oh my gosh, okay, so are we at the apex? Are we not at the apex? Are we actually at the plateau of the apex? Are we running out of ventilators? Are, you know, is 10% of the NYPD calling out sick today? And we're getting flooded with all of these worries, right? So you can do two things. You can either shut down and think, I'm going to look out the window now and oh, there's actually a bee, perfect timing bee. Hello, bee, what are you up to, bee? And I can ignore all the noise. Or I can think, okay, run at it. What's the worst that could happen? Okay, so, you know, 10% of the workforce is out for the NYPD. What's the worst that could happen? Okay, crimes might go up. Then what happens? Well, I'm sure they have contingency plans in place to manage this. So maybe they will, you know, call more people in. Or there are less people on the streets because we're all told to shelter in place. So maybe crimes actually won't go up as high as they will. And you basically meet them and you think about them in this rational, logical ways. So instead of the what if, you're planning a little bit. It's then what? So what's the worst that could happen? Then what might happen next? And part of this is what you can do to manage this. One of my, because this is, you know, a mission-driven thing, I am going to say this. So one of my favorite quotes is, act as everything depended on you, but trust that everything is depending on God. So what are you going to be doing to help with this in a practical way? But don't embrace all of the worry and the anxiety, because ultimately you can't control everything, but you can plan for it. So coping. How am I going to cope? So I, you know, although I like to think I have a lot of control over things, I really can't control things like staffing, you know, at the NYPD or in the hospital, but I can control my anxiety around it. So perhaps doing some of that deep breathing, doing some of that logical thinking might help manage a little bit of that anxiety. And how will you cope with those worries? when you're doing this, it has to be kind of a specific thought, right? So it's what can I do right now? So whether it's managing my anxiety and trying to de-escalate myself, or planning. So if it's something more practical like groceries, okay, so, you know, Instacart is filling up, Instacart's going on strike. Maybe I can schedule something in advance. And if not, maybe I can have my cart full and ready to go. Go on social media, see when are they typically opening up delivery slot times. Okay, maybe I'll wake up a little bit earlier to try and get that slot done instead of just worrying about what will happen if I don't have a steady food supply in my house. What is something practical that can be done? Ultimately, and I love that this was part of what was shared by Tom for anyone working in a hospital, but my goodness, does it not speak perfectly to us at Molloy, and that's letting values direct. So what are you losing if you really get caught up in too much of the worry and too much of the anxiety? What are you, you know, missing as a part of your values, your calling, your vocation? So my vocation as a lay married person is to my husband and my family, right? That is my calling. So if I'm getting too wrapped up in it, I'm not able to actively parent, be actively present with my husband during couple times. I'm not really serving God by getting too caught up. I'm not being an effective professor, colleague. I'm not able to engage in any of those things that I hold as valuable. So all of these other pieces are very evidence-based and lovely, but ultimately kind of what are they driving towards? It's not towards, oh, the science says this is how you relax. It's that, but then how are you fulfilling your greater mission and your greater calling? And I think the other coffee talk topics really help lend to this as well, with such a diverse way to answer that calling. Why I really wanted to have the slides up. So there's some wonderful resources here. One of my favorites is the second one regarding breathing and relaxation. It's called Breathe to Relax. I've used this in multiple research studies that I've been involved with across different populations. It goes on your phone, really helpful, very kind of brief, targeted, and useful. There's some also, you know, more traditional resources here, including, I love this, the Coronavirus Sanity Guide, in case you want something to look at that's more of a read, and then also a YouTube video for making sure that your breathing and practice is correct and focused. So I wanted to leave, you know, a handful of minutes. I know we're at 10:53 and we all have our days to go about. But Kathy, how would you like to wrap this up? Do you do any Q&A? Would you like me to?
Does anybody have any comments they would like to make? You could either add it by chat and I can read them off, or you can unmute yourself. I do allow you to, you know, I don't lock the microphones if anybody would like to say a few words. Annie, I can't thank you enough. This was excellent. And Annie, you'll send me this PowerPoint and we'll put it up when we list Coffee Talk this morning.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Would that be okay? So just forward the PowerPoint and we will make it part of, if everybody doesn't know that, our Coffee Talks, not all of them, but this one is being recorded and it will be up in on the Coffee Talk section of our coronavirus updates. We put Coffee Talk there every day, so you can read, you know, if you weren't able to make it or if you want to share it with a friend, you can do that. And I think Diane actually puts it in the updates and gives you a link if you need to get to it. Does anybody have a few words for Annie who would like to share some of the way they're feeling right now about all of this stress? I loved the slide about facing it, do an end run, facing it head on, because I know that I struggle with, you know, I ran to CVS, oh my gosh, is that where I'm going to get it? You know, what's going to happen? And, you know, and if, you know, if you get sick, what are you going to do and how are you going to handle that? So I think it's more so, there is so much. Another recommendation that was made to me is not to listen to what the news constantly. You know, do it once a day if you have to, just to get an update. But then you just got to turn it off and do something else, because they just bombard you and the, you know, the over and over again with it.
Yeah, the 24-hour news cycle is not helpful.
No.
Not helpful at all.
Anybody have a few words to share with us before we have to say goodbye for the day? Everybody's good. I've got a couple of chats here, so let me just go through it. All right. So the I have Okay, that was, yeah, oh, and it says, Annie, that was really great. I just have people that are really just happy that you were here with us today. So let me just give you a
Wonderful.
couple
Yeah,
of
no,
the,
I'm gonna let you scroll through that. Thank you all so much. That's wonderful comments. Yes, please feel free to share. I'll be sending the full reference from my colleague on the West Coast, and I'll also have the
so
slide.
if everybody, I don't know if anybody's just on the phone. So if you're not on the phone, you can read the chats yourself. But Madeline says no questions, but thanks. And then, you know, it was very supportive, so they appreciated that. So this is really something that we need to do together. I thank all of you because so many of you have been, oh, Diane Fournier did throw in that, yes, they'll definitely post it on the coronavirus web pages. And Janine shared that I try to focus on all things I can do to stay healthy and eating nourishing foods. I think we need to do a section about eating because I think that is a problem when you're home all day. That is a tough one. So we can talk about that on another day. But I thank you, Annie. Thank you for what you're doing for our students too. Annie is teaching, I think 3 or 4 days a week.
4 classes, like most of us.
Like most, I know. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for what you're doing. And everybody have a good rest of your day. Again, it's a beautiful sunny day. They don't promise this for the whole week. So try to get out and get a walk. All right.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.